Hello, indie authors. Valerie Ihsan here. Thanks for watching or listening to the Indie Author Mentor Show. It is episode 25. We are in season 2, and today is September. I didn't even look at the date before I started watching this or recording this. It's the 18th, September 18, 2019. As I record this today, I'm going to be talking about how to fill the creative well. But first, let me just do a quick update. I put in a lot of work time on the coursework for the Sweet Spot Strategy, my customized coaching signature program is coming along. I'm getting really excited about the launch of that. I'm hoping to launch it this fall towards the end of the year. So look out for more information about that up and coming. And I am in the midst of buying new plants. I went to go buy a rose arbor for this crazy rose in my front yard that is leaning way over and it's like falling on the ground. I knew it was a climbing rose when I planted it, and I stuck a small trellis out there, a small wooden one, and it never did its thing. I never connected it to that, and it's too heavy. The rose tree, it's like a tree now. It's so huge. And the stalks, is that what you call it on the rose? The stems are so huge. They're like this big around, and it just wouldn't, that little wooden trellis wouldn't have done anything. So I went to buy one of those metal rose arbors. So I had to look in 3 different stores because as it's the end of September, everybody's sent their summer stuff away already. So I had to hunt through 3 different stores to find the rose arbor. And along the way, I found lots of plants to buy. And I told myself I wasn't going to buy any plants this year because my MO is usually to not plant them in the ground in time and then they die. So it seems silly to continue buying plants if I'm not going to actually plant them. And of course, it's too late in the year to plant the type of plants that I purchased. So, well, with the exception of one. Anyway, I also wanted to try my hand at some hanging indoor plants. I have a couple of plants here in my house that don't do so well. I always forget to water them. But the plants I have in my downtown Eugene office are stunning. They're just getting so huge. I feel like I need to repot them. So I'm going to bring one of them home for my office here. And as I mentioned last week, I am redecorating this office, and right now I am sitting in a tiny, in my rocking chair in front of my bookcase, and the lighting behind me is a little bit bright, so I hope those of you watching on YouTube can see my face and I'm not too backlit. So earlier this week, I finished putting some plastic and paper down on the floor on the carpet so I don't get paint on it. And I finished taping up a couple of other spots that I had forgotten, and I spackled and took things off the walls. And so I brought the can of paint in here, and now the last thing to do is to stir it and, pour it into a smaller container so I can get up on a ladder and paint trim. I always start with trim. I don't know why. So that's my update. And please remember that if you'd like to sponsor this show on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Valerie Ihsan. Ihsan is spelled IHSAN. Okay, so the main topic is filling that creative well. A billion years ago, I read Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, and since then I've gone through a study group for that book, and I've read the book, I think, 4 times, and I still have a morning pages routine myself. I get up in the morning and feed the dogs and make a cup of tea and I sit down with my journal. So that still happens for me. The thing that I never could do with any amount of consistency regarding Julia Cameron's book was to go on the artist's dates. Probably because I was trying to make it into something more, not more special, but I was making it harder than it needed to be, which is kind of my MO for about everything else in my life. So that doesn't actually surprise me. But I kept feeling like it had to be something that couldn't be related to work. And that's just not true for me, since I am, I do artistic work. And so when I thought more about it filling the creative well, as opposed to, taking myself out on an artist date also felt like I was taking away time from something else that was equally important. Or, it felt selfish because I wasn't, taking my kids out on a special one-on-one time. So there were many years where I just couldn't make myself do it, or doing it became a chore for me, just something else on my to-do list to do. And now I still don't go on quote unquote artist dates, but I do try to find ways to fill the creative well, because your spirit just gets tired, your creative muscles get tired, and after a while the things that you used to do that brought you joy, don't bring you joy anymore. Or maybe you're in between writing projects and you can't think of anything to write about. Or there's a lot of ways that being creatively dry, so to speak, manifests in your personal life and also in your author business life. So I have 6 tips for you today on filling that creative well. Hopefully it will spark something for you and make you think of something else that would fit your lifestyle a little better, or elicit conversation. Please find me in my Facebook group, the Indie Author Mentor group, and I would love to chit chat with you there. Or if you're on Patreon, hit me up with a comment there, and you can always leave a comment at the show notes here as well. So I would love to start a conversation about filling the creative well, what you do to fill the creative well, because maybe your ideas will spark something in me, and maybe it'll be a resounding aha moment, and I'll do whatever you suggest. And that would be another cool part of the conversation as well, for me to come back and tell you that I did the thing you said to do. So here are 6 things that might help you to fill that creative well. 1, to go ahead and plan those artist dates, if you will. If that resonates with you, it resonated with millions of people that bought The Artist's Way and read that book repeatedly. So, try it if that works for you. I would say that just to do something that does bring you joy, or I think I was overthinking it too much. I would be thinking like, well, I have to do something creative, or I have to do something that I can't do any other time, or have to do something that I could use in a creative work later on. Like, there were too many rules that I was putting up around it. So I say there are no rules. I think Julia Cameron's only rule actually was that you do it by yourself. That was just time for you, and it didn't have to be something expensive. You could go to a stationery store and buy yourself some new stickers or something, but it really could just be anything that brought you joy or that feeds you somehow. And I never thought, I'll tell you what feeds me right now: taking naps and reading fiction. Sometimes I don't allow myself time to do things like that, and that's part of my job description. I'm a writer, so I have started taking longer lunch periods and allowing myself to read fiction during the day, because what happens usually is I get sucked in and then I don't want to go back to work. So I only let myself up until recently, I was only letting myself read fiction or reading nonfiction during the day, some business book or inspirational book or something like that. And so now I let myself read fiction during my lunch hour. And yeah, taking naps. If that inspires you, and that could totally fill your creative well. If you're emotionally and spiritually exhausted, it'll show up physically in your body too. Number 2, continue reading 30 minutes of fiction per day. That was my note to myself at one point. So maybe you don't already read fiction every day, so you wouldn't be continuing. You would be starting it from scratch. But I discovered that if I gave myself that small time limit of 30 minutes, it didn't seem outrageous. I spend more time watching TV than that some days. So if I can sit down and read for 30 minutes a day in my fiction selection, then I feel so much happier and so much more fulfilled. And, often I'll read longer than 30 minutes, but it's just something that it took away the excuse that I didn't have time to read. And I hear a lot of people, even authors, say, oh, I don't have time to read. But 30 minutes is not going to make or break your weekly schedule. And yeah, it's definitely a way to fill the creative well. So that's number 2. Number 3, I wanted to remember a quote from Joanna Penn's The Successful Author Mindset book. And she was talking about learning on the journey. And it was in direct, she was talking about, for those of us, myself included, book quote, Learn on the Journey, had to do with the very real, how do I say this? One of my strengths is input, which means I read a lot and I research a lot. But I also worry that I don't know enough to start something, whether it's a writing project or a coaching program or whatever. And so I will do extensive research. And I remember before I published my first book and really got serious about writing, I read a lot of books about writing and I read a lot of books about creativity. And, at some point you just have to put down the books and just start, even if you don't feel like you're ready. So she was talking about in her book about starting before you feel ready and that you could just learn on the journey. So I wanted to remember that quote. So I wanted to, one of my number 3 then is to make a pretty sign that says to learn on the journey. And you can use this for affirmations, or if you have a quote that you say often or you've heard someone say that resonates with you. I often have little signs around the house, in the kitchen and in the bedroom of quotes of affirmations or quotes that just inspire me and I want to remember and have those little signs posted on the wall so that they catch me by surprise. I forget that they're there and, oh, there's a spot. And yeah, so maybe that will be helpful to you. So number 4 is to make my office beautiful so that I want to be in it. And that's what I'm working on right now. And I told you that my office has gotten so disorganized that I really don't like being in here and I really don't feel like I can work in here. Case in point, like I'm in a rocking chair with my laptop camera on my lap and the dog I left the door open and it's just really kind of a chaotic recording day. So I apologize for if the chaos is distracting you. So number 4 is to make my office beautiful. So if you have a space in your place that you write in and you want to be inspired to be out there writing, then make it beautiful. Put something special in it that reminds you of why you're doing this work, or put things in it that that make you feel at home or make you feel comfortable or inspire you. Even just painting one wall a different color might be enough to spark interest in being in here. Setting up your desk ergonomically so that your chair, so that you're physically comfortable while you're working. That's a real big one too. So it doesn't have to just be like redecorate your office, but make it usable and make it be a place where you're comfortable. Number 5 is to create a creative ritual for yourself. So there's a lot of evidence and research lately about brain hacking and how to like automatically get yourself into that flow. So you don't waste time trying to get into that flow state where you're writing quickly and efficiently. And if it takes you, 37 minutes to kind of get into the swing of things and you only have an hour to write or 45 minutes to write, you don't actually have a whole lot of things. You don't have a whole lot of actual writing time if that's the case. But if you have some sort of creative brain hack that you do that allows you to get right in to the workspace, the work mode, then awesome. So creating something like that for you might be just lighting a candle before you sit down to your computer, or it might be doing like 5 to 10 minutes of meditation before you start writing, or it might be just as simple as making a cup of tea and closing the office door as you walk in, or kicking the dogs out of the office so you don't hear them barking when the mailman comes, or whatever it is, but some sort of creative ritual that allows you to enter that workspace mode in your brain so that you can slip faster and easier into that creative flow state that's so important and more fun, when we work and create. And the last thing on my list is to watch more documentaries. And I don't know if that creates interest in anyone else. But I really feel like personally that is a way that I can fill my well, because I like to be curious about things. And if I lose my sense of curiosity because of being in autopilot or not getting enough sleep or not eating healthy or, working too much or whatever it is, or just watching, the same TV series over and over again or whatever it is, just my normal routine. If I do the same things over and over, I tend to lose that sense of curiosity about other things. So I want to harbor that in me. I want to encourage that to grow. So I want to watch documentaries that make me think, or watch documentaries about subjects that I'm interested in already, so that, you could totally get story ideas from them, but even if that's not the goal or even the byproduct, it's still going to be a way that will get my brain working, different parts of my brain that I don't use when I'm writing, and it's just kind of a brain workout, I guess, and that tends to fill my creative well. So these are fairly personal tips. And some of them may sound, really boring to you or just won't resonate with you. But hopefully these 6 tips on filling your creative well elicited some sort of, thinking about your own ways that you could fill a creative well, or what kind of artist dates would be interesting to you. So I would love to hear about your responses to these 6 tips. And if you have any of your own that you'd like to share with me or the community, I would love to hear them. And I would be happy to read them out on the podcast next week if you send in something on the comment feed. So that's it for now. Be well, happy writing, happy publishing, and I will see you next week where we will be interviewing Jessica Cagle-Faber on writing by the numbers. She's going to give a talk at the Eugene chapter of Willamette Writers here in Eugene, Oregon next week. It's the first weekend. It's not next week. It's the week after that. In 2 weeks, she'll be giving a talk. It's Wednesday. I think that's October 2nd of the first Wednesday of the month. If you are local to the Eugene Springfield area, you can listen to the interview with her next week, and then you can go to her actual talk, Writing by the Numbers, dealing with rejection and finding new ways to submit your work. Then, I will see you next week with Jessica and hope to see you at the meeting as well if you are in a local area. Thank you so much. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.